Well, I'd like to welcome everyone to this conference, to this wonderful conference. I have seen the program and I wish I could be there. I feel a bit of an imposter that I'm welcoming people to a conference at which I'm not going to be present, but it's really my loss. I've often thought about trying to relocate Australia a bit closer to the northern hemisphere, which would make it easier for us to go there. So many exciting things happening. But at least I get the pleasure of inviting you all to this conference. I've been told that I should particularly mention, and I'm delighted to do so, Governor Alex Chernoff, Vice Chancellor Glyn Davis, Professor Robert Johansson, and Professor Amitav Mattu, who actually has been very involved in planning this conference. And I'm delighted to add my voice to those of others in welcoming everyone. I see that a number of people there who are old friends. Gopal Gandhi, a very old friend, who used to be the governor of West Bengal. In fact, his successor, M.K. Narayanan, is also going to be there. A number of other names I see among friends like Pratap Bhanu Mehta and others. I won't mention everyone by name, there are quite a few. And I really feel very sad not to be there. I should really not be having this role because I'm not giving a paper in the conference, but the conference does share the name of a book of mine, namely The Argumentative Indian, and I'm honored by it. I've been told to say something about the book, describe its main content, but if it's arrogant to write a book, it's super arrogant to try to describe it to others. So I won't really do that, but I think the subject of arguments in India is a very important one. India had a very long argumentative tradition with which my book is much involved. I even begin with the Rig Vedas, quoting a rather agnostic, possibly even atheistic verse in that 1500 BC document, which is meant to be the mainstay of the Hindu religion. But this is the tradition to which not only the Hindus but also Buddhists, Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, Parsis, and even people of Jewish origin, who all came to India at different times, have contributed. I think we should celebrate that, especially since from time to time intolerance appeals to some countrymen of mine, and I think it's very important to avoid that thought. I think it's also an invitation to think about the tradition, an invitation to take a critical view of it. If you think about the Gita, which is one of the scriptural books in Hinduism, it's really one long argument between two perspectives about whether it's right to wage a war and in the process kill people, kill even people who are close to one, friends, relations, and so on, in pursuit of a good cause. Krishna taking the view that that is your duty, you ought to do it. Arjun taking the view, the great warrior, that it may look like my duty, but could it be my duty really to kill all these people, even if the cause is good? In the Gita itself, Krishna wins the argument, but if you look at the epic, and that's where the criticality comes in, some of the things that Arjuna was feared, namely the kind of death and desolation that visits the area. The Mahabharata, the epic ends with funeral fires burning at different places, women crying about the men who have died. It's not a story where the celebration of the Krishna perspective could be seen to be unalloyed. There is something to discuss, and that criticality is a very important one to capture. And it depends on, when we look at history, we can interpret it in different way. I've always emphasized, and maybe a personal bias there, to look at the critical elements in it because they give us interesting things to think about today, and I think that applies to many areas in Indian thought today. I think it's also the case that the long argumentative tradition has some contribution to make to having a flourishing democracy in India. So in that sense, there is something to explore, to what extent this helps our democracy. Our democracy is successful in many ways, not in every way, because a lot of the people do not get an adequate voice. People who are in the bottom of the society, the contrast between the privileged and the rest can be quite large. And it's an incitement also to think about the argumentative tradition is to how to bring more people into the fold of the effective arguments in the Indian polity. And I know many people here in this conference, I see from the name, have really thought about that issue. And these are important issues. So the argumentative tradition in India, to think about it, is partly a celebration, partly an invitation to criticality, partly a reason for further exploration, and partly also incitement to get more people into the argument so that the Indian democracy could be a more inclusive one than it has in effect ended up being. I have to confess that I'm at the moment finishing a book jointly with Jean Drèze, tentatively called An Uncertain Glory. That's a Shakespearean term from Two Gentlemen in Verona, An Uncertain Glory, India and its contradictions. I think these contradictions are part of the Indian society, and I think the argumentative tradition can be invoked in the context of trying to resolve these contradictions as well as to understand these contradictions much better. So this is, to me, a huge intellectual invitation that the Indian argumentative tradition presents to us. And this conference, in many ways, is something that I really admire the planning of, because there's so many interesting issues that are being captured in the different sessions. I feel very deprived not to be able to come and attend, and in some ways giving the role of inviting others to come there without being able, or welcoming others to come there without being able to be there. It seems to be adding to, as they say in Bengali, adding salt to an injured skin. And it's sadness, but I wish you all a wonderful conference, and I will find out from Professor Mathur and others how it went. And I would very, very much like to express my appreciation in giving this opportunity to somehow indirectly participate in this conference. I'm very grateful, and I wish you all a wonderful, wonderful set of meetings. Thanks very much.